Hello again. Gonna give a new board scheme a try here. Just see if it's a little easier on the eyes. And we get the black pieces. So we're gonna go into our timeline of Sicilian. Oh, he's gonna play a closed structure and not go for the open Sicilian. Okay. We'll just continue our development then. Um, he's gonna go for a fianchetto setup, maybe with bishops here. So might need to adjust our plan a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get my other knight developed. Not worried about an e5 push because then knight to g4 will double attack the pawn. Normally I place my queen here on c7, but it looks like with this fianchetto structure, he's preparing to attack that pretty quickly and candy tempo. And then I can block it with e5, but it's a wasted tempo. I've already played e6. So let's see if we can't adjust a little bit here. And generally, I don't like to fianchetto my dark square bishop in the e6 structures because once I play e6, the dark squares are already a little weakened. So I think my plan in this structure might be to go for the small center. Might be. So I'm going to develop my dark square bishop here to prevent any pinning ideas. And I think I'm gonna consider a d6 push and play with a small center. Yeah. Bishop d7. And then maybe positioning the bishop over here on c6 to challenge. I like that better than being fianchettoing because I would likely have to move my rook here, rook to b8 to support the bishop with fianchettoing, and I just don't think the rook is well placed there. I'd rather move the rook somewhere else long term. It's this small, flexible center that he pushes. I can take. If I get my knight out of there, maybe retreat it, I can consider pushing the pawn in response to an e5 push. I might remaneuver my knight here anyway and come to e5 to be a little more imposing on the center. Suppose I can do that from here, but I mean that might provoke an h-pawn push. Hmm. This is an area of growth for me in chess. I talking out plans, finding the right plan in unfamiliar waters. I think probably every chess player can improve upon that a little bit, but so we got to close, well, not necessarily a lock. It's not locked or closed, but it's going to be congested. There's lots of pawns are staying on the board. And for a positional maneuver, a maneuvering game. So knights are going to be valuable. I'd like to claim space. Maybe here on the queen side looks like where my space gaining chances are. But I've got some work to do with the pieces first. I'm delaying castling just to make my opponent think a little bit. There's no danger of breaking open the center because there's no tension. He could push uh, the e-pawn forward, but that's easily met by knight g4 or knight d7 attacking the pawn. So I'm not worried about leaving my king in the center because there's no tension. All right. He gets a knight developed after thinking for a long time. Did he think? 4 minutes for a knight development. Okay. So let's just get our bishop developed. Very small, tight quarters here, not a lot of wiggle room. I did take that square away from my knight. So push here. It can still be met by capturing, so not the end of the world. I don't think I'd consider coming here because of the trade. Then I do have to open up my king. But I'd have a chance to castle. Equal game. This looks all pretty equal right now. Slight edge to white because of the initiative and the space. But I'm like a little turtle here. Try to crack my shell. Okay. Bishop development. Okay. Now perhaps I can gain some space in the center with this push. And if takes, takes. I've opened the E file, but I'm also threatening to push D4 and fork. Might provoke an E4, a D4 push on his part. I could come here and threaten to win the bishop pair. But this is a closed game right now. And it's not clear that the position's going to open up unless I do it. I could try and crack the center open here because he would be forced to take, I think. If he doesn't, he pushes and tries to counterattack. And I come to G4. I suppose he can push D4. then takes, takes, takes. I win the pawn. Okay, so no, he can't just push because I win the pawn. So if I push d4 and he takes, and I take, he takes d, I'm threatening to fork two pieces. He would need to move one of them or push d4 himself. I don't know that I think he kind of retains the initiative in that because even after I take and I'm threatening this push, a simple um I don't know. Be left with pawns here and here. He's blocking the E file. I'm blocking the E file. Gives me a moment to get castled. I think I like this D. I do like this. I think I'm going to push D4, D5, D5. Attack in the center. He takes, and I'm going to take. Okay. So now we've got a semi-open game with an open E file, and I'm going to need to get castled now. So lines of attack. I don't want my king left in the center. Okay. He's also got this threat of knight here. So let's answer that threat first. So even if he slides the rook over to take the E file, I'm still protected. I can castle next move. There's not an immediate threat. So I need to keep this knight out. And now I would expect him taking control of the E file. I'm going to castle to unpin my bishop. And now I've got two pawns controlling central squares. So I think this bishop move might have been inaccurate at best. He does have a lead in development because he's already castled and he's going to get his rook to the center. But I'm working with two pawns in the center. Well, one central pawn and the C pawn. He could come here with the bishop as well, threaten to swap this knight off. But he's going to double attack here. Okay. So he's threatening to flat out win a pawn. He's also threatening my bishop and knight. I'm not worried about him taking this knight. So I can take towards the center and strengthen my center and have an open B file to play with. My A pawn will be isolated, but I can work with that. So I think I'm tempted to play bishop e6, really fortifying my D pawn and keeping a strong center. If he takes, I get to take back, and my D pawn is solid. His only real chance to undermine my center will be to move this knight away, push the C pawn himself, where this pawn will be a bit backwards. Definitely backwards. But I think that's my answer for now. And then I think I might be able to get castle. Assuming he doesn't take and force me to take back. In fact, I'll just, I don't like pre-move. I'm not going to pre-move in a 15-minute game. Um, Looking pretty equal still. His activity gives him a lot of compensation against my center, but I think I've gained a little space advantage here in the center. So if he takes tonight, I'm obviously taking back. Almost any other move, I think I'm going to castle. Rookie one would be reasonable, maybe even queen d2. Um, I don't I don't know that any other move seems like it's worth considering. Might get ideas of, okay, he takes the knight, I'm going to take it back. Of knight to h4, h5, knight h5, threatening the bishop, where he can't come back here because I'll have a fork. But I've got to castle first because I can't hang this pawn with the king and rook fork. All right, he protects his bishop with queen. Reasonable. So I might do that next, but first I'm going to get castled just so this pawn doesn't. Suppose I could move the rook and defend it, but my rook really wants to be on this file, not for this pesky bishop. I hate to use my rook as a defensive piece. It's such a powerful piece. Making it defend a pawn just seems like a waste. I'm using an artillery gun to defend a trading post or something. I'm gonna castle. Castling seems the most reasonable move. And maybe I could lift the queen to defend here. Still centrally located, and it's not a bad idea. Yeah, let's defend with the queen. Maybe into this attack here. That looks like a pretty reasonable threat. Get my bishop here and swap it off. He does not want to take, because my queen will end up right here on h3. Now he's going to try and swap off my knight. Okay. What am I going to do about that? Yeah, if I let him have it, I break up in my king's position. I don't want that. I just that doesn't necessarily do that. The bishop's still sitting right there. I'm not required to do that. If I sit and think for a second and actually look at multiple options. So there is this. Trading off the light square bishops does severely weaken his, light squares around king. If I lose the knight, it's very hard for me to take advantage of that with the queen and dark square bishop. I think I move forward and attack the dark square bishop with the knight here. And it doesn't. I should have thought about that longer. Gonna, so he goes right back to where he was. Hmm. I don't want to push my pawns. That gives up this square, and that's his knight is confined over here to the queen side unless it comes back. And we're going to repeat the position for a second. We're going to see if what he wants to do with this bishop. Okay. So this is the second time in this position. I'm gonna, ooh. So if I attack the light squares, bishop h3, I'm on arrow, there we go. Bishop h3, bishop takes. I'm trying to see if there's a way that he can deflect my queen off. Something's up with my mouse. And leave this dark square bishop hanging. My mouse needs a new battery or what? I think this is how I want to play it though. Moving the bishop away attacks this bishop. So I think the sequence, there's a sequence that'll work out for me. Not to win anything materially, but positionally, I think I get to weaken these light squares. If he doesn't take my bishop, I can take his. Draw his king forward. I just didn't want to offer him the chance to repeat another time. Because there's plenty of life in this position, I think. All right, he moves the knight. Gonna bring the knight here. Okay. Well, I think we can, the light squares is ultimately beneficial for me. Now, if only there were a route for my knight to get here to support those squares. But he does have the opportunity at the moment to swap off. Okay. Tempted to push e6 to give my knight that route, eyeing up the f3 and the h3 squares. It also creates lift for my king in the long term. And if he decides to trade off bishop for knight, that does give me the b file for my rook to start harassing over here. And I get the bishop versus knight with only a pair of pawns off the board, though. Still a lot of congestion. But I think I like that move. I want to play that move. I'm down to 3 minutes. Got to keep an eye on time. Hmm. I give him a hook. I didn't think about him retreating the bishop. Back to f4 with a battery on it. H. Okay. He's gonna let me keep my knight. If he drops his bishop way back here, I'll just seal it off. Not worried about giving up this square anymore. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna reroute my knight, try and eye up these squares. He can push f4, but then I will seal his bishop out of the king's side. Maybe. And the knight guards this square, so my queen won't be coming there even if I get my knight here. Perhaps I can pin the knight. Invite a pawn push on the H file. If I push here first, threatening to trap his bishop. Let's do that. 2 minutes. Gonna have to play a little instinctual now. I'm gonna shift gears into blitz chess. Getting 10 seconds back each move is nice though. So that opened up light squares for me to attack the king. That does seal his bishop, but it seals it on the king side. I'm threatening to trap it right now. So that leaves this square. So he's eyeing up this. What if I go knight here? He doesn't have time to take my g-pawn. But if he pushes f4, queen h3 would win his knight. Mine would still be hanging. I'm going to do this without thinking about it too much. So I've got my eyes on these two squares now. That would hang my bishop as well. Hmm. I didn't calculate this very thoroughly, but I'm pretty sharp on tactics, so I think I can figure it out. Figure a way out. Down to 2 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 26 seconds. Opponent has 3 minutes and 35 seconds ish. So if he takes and I check, he goes back. I've got knight here, forking queen and king. And if he goes back here, I've still got knight here attacking queen and threatening mate. Okay, I didn't have to think about that too long. He messed up. This is mate. Could not afford to take there. Missed my threats. There is no defense. Good game, friend. Gee, let's look at a game review. I think he had to push the F pawn before taking my G pawn. I played that 87%, and it was pretty equal all the way through. I had a slight edge, gave it back, and then he blundered or made a mistake with that towards the end. So I played that like a 2200. I played it like a 1950. It's always satisfying. So we get a Sicilian, what's this? Just a closed. Oh, a French variation. French variation of the Sicilian. Fianchettos. That's book, book, book. This is a good move. Knight c3 is a good move. He spent a long time thinking about that. 4 minutes on a developing move like that. I'm interested to see what book continuation is, if not knight c6 or knight c3. But anyway, we'll just carry on. Good move. That move I felt gave me this chance here to expand in the center. And it's a dead equal position. I'm curious what the best move is here. bishop here. Excuse me, which makes sense because that's where the bishop ended up anyway. Attacking this backwards pawn. Ideas of piling up with the knight, attacking it. I mean, I can push my e pawn, but that does give him the hole on d5 to work with. So a good outpost for his knight. This was inaccurate. It didn't like my central push. So what were my other candidates here? Oh, I was considering attacking the bishop. That felt superficial though. Just moves it. I attack it again. He moves it back. And I've gained some space, but I'm going to have to reposition this knight. I've given up a hole. System my g4 is best. That's what it says. I'll have to examine that a little more positionally. I don't know. I liked taking space in the center. It was best for him to take, best for me to take back. And that bishop move was inaccurate. Should he have moved his knight? Because he's facing a fork. So I would just push d4. Okay. Also reasonable. It does leave me with a backwards d pawn that is targeted. So that makes good sense for white positioning. Could leave me with an isolated d pawn. And with the queen, knight, and bishop all targeting it, that's going to be a long-term liability. Which is why my d4 push was inaccurate. Taking space in the center. Okay. This is why we replay our games. That was inaccurate. Felt like that was a punt. Oh well, he has a clear idea of bringing the knight in. I suppose that's not a terrible threat though, because I can just castle. I can just castle away, and I'm sure that's what it wants me to do, is castle. Oh, now it wants me to push d4 and encourage this. But I still have the opportunity to castle even after knight b5. So I don't know. I didn't want to give up this square for the knight, but in hindsight, I don't see why particularly. It also felt like it gave the bishop more scope. So this threat wasn't as serious as I was making it out to be. That is the best move. Takes. Castles was good. We're at an equal game, 0.2. Very slight edge for white. It did not like my queen development either. So other candidate moves here. I was considering developing the bishop, or developing the knight to attack the bishop. And I'm going to win the bishop here because any other move is, well, that's inaccurate. So tell me what's the best move. Okay. A5. Why is A5 the best move? I am at a loss and uncertain why A5 is the best move. There has to be something several moves down, some positional reason after a sequence of move that makes A5 the best move right here, but I'm not going to dig deep and figure out why at the moment. Okay. So we repeated position. This was a mistake. Trading light square bishops was a mistake. I go from dead equal to a 1.1 edge for white. And why is that the case? So I should have attacked. I should have repeated the position. Really? They wanted me to repeat the position. I don't like that. I don't like repeating that position. So from here, this is the first iteration of this position. This is the second iteration of the position. He comes back. And if I attack the bishop again, and he comes back, I suppose I have to make another move before if I bring the knight back. That's the third iteration. This it calls a mistake. And this is a miss. And why is this a miss? Because of this fork. I am surprised I did not see that in game, which is exactly why a5 was the best move in the previous position, because here I could lift the rook to defend the square. I don't have b8 to defend it. So a5 was the best move to give the rook space. The more you know. Takes. It liked that, likes that. That was a mistake. And black has a 1-point edge here. Excellent move, pushing the d4. And this is a miss. Eyeing these two squares up was a miss. Does it want me to trap the bishop? Did it want me to trap that bishop? Felt like comes back. I could expose my king and just win the bishop, I think. But that's really a. It's only giving me a 1.5 on the eval. So if I didn't want to retry that move. I want to retry this move. If I push there, which it is calling the best move, only place for the bishop is back. I push again, and the bishop is trapped. He's going to win. I'm going to win the bishop for a pawn, but I have a very naked and exposed king. I do have the bishop, queen, knight, rook all around it, protecting it. So it's not a full piece like on the eval, because I don't know. It's just my king's very naked. And I don't know. I don't know. That's risky, even for me. But still an edge for black. So I chose to eye up these two squares, and that was a blunder on his part. I have 9 points. I'm up a full queen in this position because of that move right there. And he has to. That's the best move. And how does he stop mate in one? It doesn't say mate. It says 9-point edge. What's the defense? Because you can check. That's the only other move. But that still looks like it leads to forced mate. Let me open up the analysis. it says knight f6 is the best line. Everything else is made in one. So we got to give a check. And I go king takes. But what if, yeah. So I have a choice of bishop takes or king takes. And bishop takes only leaves black 2-point material edge because bishop takes and queen takes h6 guards against mate. Okay, so I can't take with the bishop there. King takes is the move, only move. Leaves me with 13 points up on the eval, and the follow-up is knight g4. Check. No. G4 back here to guard against mate. And I take the queen. That's why it's 11 points on eval here. Doesn't lead to force mate because the knight protects. If I bring the queen off, what if I bring the queen off? Queen e2, he saves his queen and threatens the knight. If I bring the queen back to maintain pressure or protection, he lifts. Okay. That was a very fun game. Appreciate I appreciate you watching. Feel free to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. Let me know if this board is a little easier on the eyes or if you want me to go back to the old black and silver metal board. I do like that board. You'll probably see it again in the future, but it's nice to switch it up. I'll see you next time.